Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I wanted to talk to you about very important things today, and the most important one will take the majority of my time, which is the story that was published about 3 Israeli hostages fleeing captivity and being killed by the IDF. Why is it so important? What it means, why it was published, and how is it related to the conflict in the war cabinet? So firstly, let's start with the act itself. 3 Israeli hostages fled. They managed to flee captivity somehow. They went out, according to Israeli reports, without tops. One of them was holding a white flag, and they were screaming in Hebrew so that the Israeli soldiers know that they are Israeli and that they're fleeing. One of the soldiers reported this and was asked to go and check the situation. He shot and killed all of them. Now, this indicates a couple of things. That number one, these people, their shoot to kill is very easy. So they kill people left, right, and center. That's number one. Like today, they killed approximately 3 people on camera in the West Bank who were literally doing nothing. And I'm going to talk to you later in this video about a disgusting, barbaric, sadistic massacre that happened again today in one of the Gaza hospitals, or whatever remained of that hospital. But to continue with this one, they clearly shoot to kill. Why did they shoot them? That's the main question. Well, firstly, this happened in Shuja'iyya. Shuja'iyya is where they had the big hit a few days ago, where they lost 11 soldiers from one of their elite forces, okay? So you're talking about, it's almost like a mini 7th October. So you take out the army that's in charge of a certain place, albeit if they're new to it. New force comes in, they don't know what the hell is going on, and they're shooting left, right, and center, which is exactly what happened on the 7th of October. All of the Gaza brigade went. Israel had to attract forces from all across the country. They started attacking in Apache helicopters. They massacred the people in the festival. They shot at the kibbutzes from tanks, and they killed the majority of the Israeli civilians. This is what you don't obviously hear in the mainstream media, but what actually happened, according to multiple Israeli reports and eyewitnesses on the day from Israel. So it's almost like a mini 7th of October. Israel was obviously outraged. They immediately went out in massive protests in Israel, calling Netanyahu to resign. End this now. We want them back. This is completely unacceptable. We don't want our children going back in coffins. We want them back alive. Multiple questions arise after this event. One of them is, why did they publish it? The IDF, the IOF, they have an option to hide these things. They hide the majority of the crimes they commit in Gaza and their losses. They hide the majority of the things. They hide most stuff. So why did they choose to publish this? Before I get to that, there were obviously massive protests in Israel, and the people were outraged by the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu refused to see them, the families of the prisoners in Gaza. They ended up meeting with Gadi Eisenkot and Benny Gantz, who are members of the war cabinet, who went out there and took responsibility, similar to what other Israeli security and intelligence leaders did after the 7th of October. They went out and took responsibility for what happened, but Netanyahu didn't. He did not take responsibility, and he still refuses to take responsibility. Now, the actual killing of these 3 hostages came at the same time that Israel published reports of Hamas using dummies as booby traps and speakers speaking in Hebrew, somewhat to say to the Israeli army, there are hostages here and come and take them, then they will be trapped and then they will get rid of them, okay? So the situation of the Israeli army is more beyond chaotic. It's completely disgraceful. They're confusing them so much in Gaza with their tactics, Hamas, that they don't know what they're doing. I mean, Yediot Ahronot published an article a couple of weeks ago where they stated that Hamas did not only surprise us with the attack on the 7th of October, it surprised us with the defense. The technique, the methods used, the sophistication, the intelligence, and the level of preparation they had for this war. It's as if they wanted Israel to come in so that they can do whatever the hell they want with them. Which brings us back to the question, why did the IDF, the IOF, publish this information when they had the option not to? Now, Benjamin Netanyahu had a press conference just about an hour ago with Benny Gantz and Yoav Gallant, okay? He spoke for the majority of the time and he looked extremely nervous, very shaken. He was palpitating, breathing heavily, and it looked like he was in complete shock. Now, my understanding of what's happening is the IDF deliberately published these images to put more pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu. Why do I say that? Well, we clearly had a split between the war cabinet as to the objectives of the war. Netanyahu has a clear interest in prolonging the war to maintain his position and protect himself, whereas the war cabinet is not interested in prolonging the war, and they're seeing the damage that's being done to Israel. That's why you had a lot of tensions at the beginning with all of the war cabinet, and that's why you saw them sometimes refusing to have joint press conferences, and that's why they actually state different objectives of the war. Netanyahu is still talking about demolishing the Hamas, whereas the rest of the war cabinet, led primarily by the defense minister Yoav Gallant, are saying we want to hurt their military capabilities and control capabilities badly. Also, don't forget that Netanyahu had tensions with the IDF chief. He refused to let him in one of the cabinet meetings without being checked. So you're talking about a lack of trust between the leadership. Many people are calling Netanyahu to resign, and he's still refusing. He also had tensions with Yoav Gallant previously during the protests for the judicial reform, and he actually sacked him once. But he had to retract from that move and place him back as a defense minister because he felt the pressure on him. So now this could potentially be a move from the IDF to push Netanyahu out of the image and try and reach a solution. This is also resonating with what Joe Biden stated. He said that with the current formation of the government, we're unable to reach a solution. So the Israeli military is doing what's in the best interest of America for Israel, which is removing Netanyahu, bringing a more moderate government, and trying to reach a solution, because Netanyahu only wants to prolong the war. So what we're seeing could well be a very fierce battle between the Israeli leadership over who runs the country, and this could get much messier as the days go by. Also, Al-Qassam spokesperson Abu Ubaidah released a statement earlier on saying that Israel is deliberately killing these hostages because they know with every hostage they kill, there's less price to pay. He didn't say those words specifically. He said that there will be repercussions and prices to pay, but this is the interpretation, that if you have less hostages in Gaza, you have a lower price to pay. But what he's not understanding, Netanyahu or Israel, is even if they kill as many hostages as they can in Gaza, the price for those hostages will be higher. Another question arises here. How did these hostages manage to flee? Apparently they're very secure and they're in tunnels, etc. We need to go back to the 7th of October and the days following. Hamas announced that they held just over 200 Israeli soldiers and citizens, and that approximately over 50, were with other groups, including the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other Palestinian movements, and some of them could be with Gazan civilians, because when they infiltrated Israel on the 7th of October, other movements and other people went in. So they could have abducted people, and they actually did. And they might have their own requests for them. But what Hamas said is that we're negotiating with the other groups who have people who are held from Israel and are looking to reach a solution. So these three people could have easily been with one of the other fractions in Gaza, or they could have been with civilians. There is an option that they were held by Hamas as well, but there was no confirmation from Hamas that they actually fled. And obviously there was no authentication from Israel because the people were killed. So they wouldn't be able to tell them who they were with, how they looked, or give them any type of detail. So this could really be indeed a turning point in the next few days, depending on how much pressure is being put on Netanyahu and whether he backs down from his stubbornness when it comes to the objectives of the war. And it also depends on his willingness to continue the war, because many polls in Israel are showing that if there were elections today, Benny Gantz would be the prime minister. Ironically, with the Palestinian population, the latest poll showed that Hamas, who was already the most popular movement previously, has doubled its popularity only amongst the Palestinian people. I'm not talking about globally or in the Arab world. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is yet another barbaric, sadistic massacre that Israel committed today. They committed a barbaric massacre in Kamal Udwan hospital, or whatever remained from that hospital, in Beit Lahia. This was the last functioning somewhat of a hospital in the northern part of Gaza. They used their bulldozers to run over tents that had patients and sick people and ran over them alive, and the Palestinians reported dozens of them were killed. And they also ran over the last functioning pharmacy in that region. The images that we've seen were truly, absolutely horrendous. Body parts of people from the ground popping out from multiple sides. There was a man holding two children, one 7-year-old and one 5-year-old probably, completely scarred, who were already injured and were treated in that last semi-functioning hospital in North Gaza, and they were barely evacuated, and he didn't even know where to take them because Israel cut multiple parts of Gaza and they shoot at people when they want to move from one place to another. So the fact that this is not even reported and there is no outrage about it just shows how much the countries that are not highlighting these atrocities, these images, similar to what they did in the beginning of the war up until the day, every single day, how complicit they are in these barbaric, disgusting crimes that Israel commits on a daily basis. And it just shows how vile these parties are who cover up these atrocities that are happening in Gaza and are not talking about them and are not outraged about them, yet they deliberately repeat misinformation after misinformation about the 7th of October as if it started there and it ended there, and they disregard the fact that Israel massacred its own civilians on that day to completely give Israel total impunity to do whatever it wishes in terms of crimes against humanity and satanic, barbaric, vile crimes that Satan himself would be ashamed of. One last thing I wanted to talk to you about is a French member of parliament, Thomas Portes. He said that approximately 4,000 French citizens are fighting with Israel in this war, and he said that these people need to be trialed for crimes against humanity. And this is an important move, even if it doesn't proceed to the final level, but the fact that there are actions being taken in that direction against Israel and anyone who is supporting this criminal apartheid regime is something positive that should be encouraged and increased. These were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope I added some beneficial information, and I'll hopefully see you soon in the next video. Take care.